Before we begin the history of the safety pin, a gentle reminder. Please don't listen while driving or using machinery. Settle somewhere safe, comfortable, and ready for rest. The safety pin is one of those quiet little objects that seems to have always been there. Light in the hand, cool to the touch, and shaped with a kind of simple, unassuming elegance. You might picture one now, a slender loop of metal, curved into a soft oval, with a tiny clasp that hides the pointed end. It's a design that feels inevitable, as though it simply grew into being rather than being invented. Yet the safety pin has a surprisingly long and winding story, one that stretches back thousands of years through ancient clothing, early metalwork, and the slow evolution of everyday tools. Tonight we'll drift gently through that history, letting the small, familiar shape guide us into a calm and restful place. As you settle in, imagine the safety pin resting in your palm. Light, smooth, quiet. A tiny piece of engineering that has held together fabrics, ideas, and moments across centuries. Its story begins far earlier than most people realize. Long before the safety pin existed, people needed ways to hold their clothing together. Early garments were simple: draped cloth, wrapped hides, woven fabrics. But even simple clothing needs structure. It needs a way to stay in place. In ancient civilizations, people turned to the materials around them. Bone, wood, and thorns were shaped into early fasteners. They were functional, but not always comfortable. A thorn might hold a cloak, but it could also scratch the skin. A carved bone pin might secure a garment, but it offered no protection from its sharp point. As metalworking developed, new possibilities emerged. Bronze and iron could be shaped into stronger, more reliable pins. These early metal fasteners were often straight, like oversized sewing needles. They worked, but they still carried the same problem: an exposed point. Imagine wearing a cloak held by a long metal pin. It would do its job, but you'd always be aware of it. A shift of fabric, a sudden movement, and the sharp end might press against the skin. Clothing was held together, but not always comfortably. People needed something better, something secure, simple, and safe. Around 1000 BCE, a new kind of fastener appeared across ancient Greece, Rome, and parts of Europe: the fibula. This was a clever little device, shaped somewhat like a modern brooch. It had a pin, a spring, and a catch, a combination that allowed clothing to be fastened more securely. The fibula was a leap forward. It kept the sharp point tucked away, protected by a clasp. It was stronger than bone, more reliable than thorns, and far more elegant than a simple straight pin. Fibulae came in many shapes: curved, spiral, ornate, or plain. Some were decorated with patterns or tiny metal beads. Others were purely functional. But all of them shared the same basic idea: a pin that could be locked safely into place. If you imagine holding one now, you might feel its weight, heavier than a modern safety pin, with a more complex shape. It was a tool, but also a piece of personal adornment, a small object that blended practicality with beauty. The fibula was the ancestor of the safety pin, carrying the same essential purpose: to hold things together gently and securely. For many centuries, fasteners continued to evolve slowly. Clothing styles changed, materials shifted, and metalworking techniques improved. but the basic idea of a pin with a clasp remained. In medieval Europe, brooches and cloak pins were common. Some were simple loops of metal, others were intricate works of art. They held cloaks, tunics, and shawls in place, just as fibulae had done. But these fasteners were often large and decorative. They weren't designed for small tasks or delicate fabrics. They were meant for outer garments, not for the tiny, everyday uses we associate with safety pins today. The world needed something smaller, something lighter, something that could be used not just for clothing, but for all the little moments when something needed to be held together quickly and safely. The idea was waiting, quietly, for someone to refine it. By the early 1800s, the Industrial Revolution was reshaping the world. Machines hummed in factories, metals produced more efficiently, and new inventions appeared almost daily. It was a time when even the simplest objects were being reimagined. In this era of innovation lived a man named Walter Hunt, an American inventor known for his practical mind and restless creativity. Hunt had a knack for solving everyday problems with simple mechanical solutions. He invented sewing machines, streetcar bells, and even early fountain pens. But one day, while trying to settle a small debt, he picked up a piece of wire, and everything changed. Hunt twisted the wire absent-mindedly, looping it, bending it, shaping it. And in that moment of quiet tinkering, he created something new. A small, spring-loaded pin with a clasp that covered the sharp point. It was simple, elegant, safe. The modern safety pin had arrived. Hunt's design was brilliant in its simplicity. A single piece of wire coiled into a tiny spring with one end sharpened and the other bent into a clasp. The spring provided tension, keeping the pin closed. The clasp protected the user from the sharp point. It was everything a fastener needed to be: secure, reusable, and safe. Imagine holding that first safety pin. It would feel familiar, almost identical to the ones we use today. Light, smooth, balanced. A tiny coil at one end, a gentle curve along its length, and a small catch that clicks softly when the pin is secured. Hunt patented his invention in 1849. He sold the rights for a modest sum, never realizing just how widely his creation would spread. But the design endured. It was too useful, too simple, too perfect to fade away. The safety pin became a quiet companion in homes, workshops, and sewing kits around the world. As the safety pin spread, people discovered countless uses for it. It held torn seams together temporarily. It secured bandages. It fastened baby clothes. It kept buttons in place when they popped off unexpectedly. The safety pin became a kind of universal helper, always ready, always reliable. Picture a small tin or sewing box from the early 20th century. Inside, you might find needles, thread, thimbles, and a handful of safety pins. They would lie there quietly, waiting for the next moment when something needed to be held together. There's something comforting about that. A tiny object that offers a sense of order, of tidiness, of things being gently secured. The safety pin doesn't demand attention. It simply does its job quietly and consistently. And because it's so small, it often goes unnoticed until the moment it's needed. As clothing styles evolved, the safety pin found new roles. Dressmakers used it to hold fabric in place during fittings. Tailors used it to mark hems. Parents used it to fasten nappies before modern fasteners existed. In craft and sewing, the safety pin became a tool of precision. It could guide elastic through a waistband, hold layers of fabric together, or secure a loose thread temporarily. Imagine the soft sound of fabric rustling as a safety pin slides through it, the gentle resistance of cloth, the tiny click as the clasp closes. These are small, quiet sensations, the kind that soothe the mind and slow the breath. The safety pin became part of the rhythm of making things, a companion to creativity. Over time, the safety pin took on meanings beyond its practical use. It appeared in fashion, in art, and even as a symbol of solidarity in certain moments of history. But even in these roles, it remained humble, a small object with a simple shape, carrying whatever meaning people chose to give it. If you imagine a safety pin now, you might picture it on a garment, on a sewing table, or tucked into a drawer. It's an object that adapts easily, fitting into whatever space or purpose it's given. Its quiet versatility is part of its charm. Today, safety pins are made from stainless steel, brass, and sometimes even plastic. They come in different sizes, from tiny, delicate ones to larger, sturdier versions used for heavier fabrics. Yet the design remains almost unchanged from Walter Hunt's original. The coil, the curve, the clasp, all still there, all still working exactly as intended. There's something soothing about that continuity, a design so complete that it has barely needed to evolve, a shape that has stayed with us for more than a century, unchanged because it works so well. In a world that moves quickly, the safety pin is a reminder that some things don't need to be reinvented. As you drift deeper into rest, imagine a small collection of safety pins lying on a soft surface. Their metal surfaces catch the light gently, reflecting a warm, muted glow. They rest quietly, each one a tiny piece of engineering, simple and complete. There's a calmness in their stillness, a sense of order, a reminder that even the smallest objects can carry long histories and quiet usefulness. The safety pin doesn't ask for attention. It simply waits, ready to help, ready to hold things together when needed. A tiny anchor in the fabric of everyday life. Let that simplicity settle around you now. Let the gentle shape, the soft curve, the quiet purpose of the safety pin guide your thoughts into a slower, softer rhythm. As this story comes to a close, imagine the safety pin once more. Light in the hand, smooth along its curve, a tiny coil holding everything gently in place. Its story spans thousands of years, from ancient fasteners to a moment of inspiration in the 19th century, all the way to the small familiar object we know today. A simple tool that has held together fabrics, ideas, and moments across generations. Let that sense of continuity soothe you. Let the quiet reliability of this tiny object ease your thoughts. You are safe. You are resting. You are drifting gently into sleep. Thank you so much for sharing this quiet moment with me. If you'd like more bedtime stories like this, then please subscribe now. And if there's a topic you'd love to hear as you drift off, let me know in the comments. Sleep well and be safe.